You don't need more strategy. You don't need to grind harder. It's not even that you're failing. You're just ignoring the one advantage that'll change everything for you, and that needs to stop. What's going on? My name is Justice Severin. Welcome to the channel here. I want to make sure that I get you deep dive into this mentality around leverage that we're going to heavily lean into today. If you don't know as well, too, this channel is really made for coaches and creators who are looking to build a wildly profitable personal brand and really monetize a smaller audience. Like, we don't need the masses here. And that's where a lot of this even ties back to this topic today around we just have to have the right amount of leverage, right? I say this all the time. You can have 1 million followers, and a lot of people do even, but they're not making money. They're not, or at the very least, they're not making the amount of money that you think that they're making compared to some people who I know have micro channels and are making so much more, right? Which side do you want to be on? There's a lot more headaches with one compared to the other. So I want to make sure you got a ton of leverage on this side to really explode your business. So obviously, if you're new to this channel here, go ahead, drop a new down below in the comments if this is your first video. Glad to have you here. If you're returning, must mean you like the stuff that I'm sharing. So definitely hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Today's gonna be a good one, like I said, to say the least here. And if as we're going through this for yourself, let me know too the niche that you're in, and if you want to, like, kind of give me some, like, give me one, two, three kind of past experiences, some things you have going on that you feel like are your leverage points, but you're not really sure how you can kind of go ahead and drip that into what you're doing. So it's going to make a lot more sense as I'm going through this. So if you want to go ahead and do that now, or if you want to wait till the end, works out just fine. But I want to make sure that really help you out here to get things rolling. So I'm thinking let's go ahead and get the ball moving here. All right. Number one, what is leverage, right? What is leverage? And really, leverage is this idea of utilizing an advantage inside of the business. The more that we can do that, the better, right? And I would say this, leverage is really not just the idea of utilizing an advantage, it's also the idea of creating an advantage. Most of the times we have some kind of advantage that we really know exists and we know it internally. It's tough that sometimes it's seen on the surface there to actually want to implement it. But it's in a sense we're creating it because we have it, but we're not using it. So it's like it's utilizing this leverage, but a portion of this is kind of like creating the leverage too. Like, maybe it's mixing a couple of pieces together that can really make this happen. And ideally, you want to do this in a way that gives you an edge over your competitors. That's the big piece. And I am a big believer in this idea of it's always you versus you. So, like, I do think that is true. So, because I don't like to think about, your competitors, because your biggest competition is the person you're looking at in the mirror. But the reality is that it's going to give you this actual edge over your competitors because a lot of people are probably trying to do the same thing that you're doing, or at least something similar, right? You have a solution that a lot of others are probably already offering to people. So how are you going to go ahead and separate yourself from the crowd? Understanding your leverage can really help out that much more, right? And it's now like, what does leverage come from? AKA, I like to call this here, understanding your hidden advantages. This is a powerful piece, and you can start to understand what are those hidden advantages for yourself, and really they tend to come from the gold that you're currently sitting on, right? It's gold that you're already sitting on there. That can come in the form of content even, right? But I'd say two bigger pieces of it really are your skills and your experience, right? Your skills and your experience. And this is why in reality, you shouldn't be building from scratch almost ever, right? Because there's almost always a better play for you to really lean into. So with that, I think that a part of this now, though, because as I say this, right, it's like, all right, Justice, I need to lean into my past skills, my past experience, which are, in a sense, like your existing skills and experience that you have as a person. And so a lot of times you're thinking, well, you know what? I'm afraid to lean into those and it's really two parts. You might be thinking first off, like, I don't even know what those are for me. And I think that you do. You just have to do some soul search. And this could take a half hour of you really thinking, like, go back through your past 5 to 20 years of your life, whatever, if you will. If you have to go further back, you could even go look back the last year or two. Think about is that what you've been focusing on. Like, really get into the weeds with what is it that you've been putting energy into, because you probably have more leverage there compared to starting something completely new. I'm always mentioning, if you go ahead and start on a brand new social media platform compared to one that you're already working on and making money from, the leverage you're going to have of actually making one little tweak on the current platform that you're on is probably going to make definitely going to have a larger impact compared to you going off on a brand new platform. The idea of a brand new platform, not brand new, of a brand new platform, the optimistic is heavy there. But the reality is there's so many potential bottlenecks and roadblocks that are sitting there compared to you making one tiny tweak that over on a platform that you're already on, and it can have such a better ROI for you, return your investment, return your time invested just for making that one tweak. So that's what, and like that idea there, it really, it speaks to what leverage is at its core, right? You have leverage on that existing platform versus another one that's completely brand new. And the other part I was going to get into here is really this idea of like why sometimes I believe at its core, if I'm being blunt, people are afraid to lean into that past leverage, right? Lean into the leverage that they know exists, whether it's that past skill set, that past experience, potentially past content, whatever it may be. And it's because I think at its core that a lot of people, they aren't, they feel like in the past, it didn't get them where they wanted to get to, right? It didn't get them where they believe it should have gotten them. So now it doesn't make sense to lean into that leverage, right? But I think that really, I think of it in this way. For one, by misusing your leverage, you're wasting years, right? So in a sense, you could also say that it's equivalent to by not using your leverage, you're wasting years. And this is why it's important that in a sense, this go around or whatever it may be, you actually seek help, right? Because think of it this way, like a true strategist, they will help you see things that you're not able to see right now, right? And potentially things that you were not able to see when you were doing this on your own. And that can absolutely make a world of a difference, right? So often, we're going to talk about priorities later on in this. So often we're focused on the wrong thing, or even we're focused on the right thing, but you don't even realize something else that's over here, or maybe it's over here, that literally can 10x what your business is potentially able to do, right? Where the ideas that you have, they could potentially 2 to 3x it, but you can't even visualize that. So that's where, and maybe you're struggling to even get that 2 to 3x, so you're falling short, and you're not even getting half of an X, on this end, right? Where if you're shooting for the 10X now, that might still at the very least get you a 3, 4, 5X. But you may be missing out on what it takes to make that gap possible for yourself. So this is where I want you to really take a hard look at yourself and like be honest, remove the ego. Like, is it because why didn't it work before? Like, were you just leaning into yourself? Maybe it was the type of coach that you had before, whatever the case is. Think about that and don't just assume that because however it played before means that that's how it's going to play again. I think of this as another analogy in the sense of Facebook ads. A lot of people say, Facebook advertising doesn't work. Well, whatever advertising, you say YouTube ad, any kind of paid ads don't work. When the reality is like there's billions of dollars being spent on paid ads. Do you think that that's because it doesn't work? People are just like throwing away money? You know the answer at your core here. So don't remove your ego. Your past leverage can work for you. You just have to figure out how to maneuver it in a way that's going to get you the most bang for your buck with it, right? So that's a big one out the gates, right? And I would think that this really even ties towards the idea that most people focus on the wrong stuff, right? Most people focus on the wrong stuff. And really, I remember too, I was actually just bringing this up on a coaching call literally yesterday, where I was sharing about an old resource that I had. It was called the 5-Hour Workweek Guide. Maybe I'll even drop that for you down below in the comments if you want. Drop a 5 down below and I'll send you the link if I don't do it in the description. We'll see if I can remember after. But really, on the coaching call, I was talking about how most people focus on the wrong stuff. And I had this 5-Hour Workweek Guide here. I still have it, where it really highlights what you should be focusing on. And I think that something that really hit hard for the room there was that I keep things very simple. The simpler you can keep it, the better. Because the simpler you can keep it, the more obvious it is for us to focus on the right things. It's so easy to kind of get pulled over in the wrong direction. Basically, you can think of it in this idea of we want to really be aiming up as fast as possible, allow our business to grow and grow. But while we're growing up, in a sense, like a tree, if you will, here, we get distracted by these side limbs, these side branches, right? And it's this and like they can get you a little bit of growth here, right? They can get you a little bit of growth here and there. But it's not getting you the 10x growth that if you just stay focused on that main thing. And that's where really a lot of people are getting it wrong here. So the more you can really start to dial into that, the better it's going to be long-term for you, and especially for your bottom line, your revenue. All right, that's just a big thing out the gates there, right? So now think of it this way. How do I know what leverage I already have if I feel like I'm starting from ground zero? That's a question I get a lot there as well, too. And so I would think of it this way. This is a real life example, too. Like I'm actually literally last week, I just helped my wife launch her first business there. It's running a spa business. And really, I thought about this a lot even in the sense of where a lot of people drop the ball when it comes to things that they've done in the past and really things that maybe they're doing and they're just not gaining traction with it. And so one of the biggest pieces that I help focus on, if you think about in general a small business, and maybe, and for more specifically, she's an esthetician, so it's like direct service, with her clients. So when you think about where the leverage really existed for her when it comes to starting a new business, a lot of people will focus on the wrong things. For me, the obvious thing to start off was with is that she already had a bunch of existing clients. So instead of acting like there's 10 different things we can be doing in the business, the first thing that we need to do before we launch this business and before day one of opening is we need to make sure that we're able to get as many of those previous clients over into her existing book now, into her new location. That is the primary goal for the first month to 2 months, if you will, right? Like this is it. And maybe as you listen, it's like, yeah, that seems obvious, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it doesn't to you, and like you probably should be taking that advice if that didn't seem obvious to you. But the reality is that so many people will get distracted with other things. And I was seeing this with my wife as well too as we were rolling this out, where like that, like there's other little shiny objects that seem like they can be more beneficial. And then you can also think of this too when there's fear creeping in. The reality is that you can only control what you can control. Control the controllables. And like if you want this business to be successful, you have to do what you can do. And so that's where with this, it's like, all right, well, what is the fastest path to cash? A mentor of mine used to always say that. What's the lowest hanging fruit? What's the fastest path to cash in your business? And that, without a doubt, is the fastest path to cash for her. Was and is. Right? And so that's where the reality is a lot of people get sidetracked with so many other different things. Let me focus on my logo over here because that matters so much. Let me focus on the aesthetic of the room. That matters so much. Let me focus on getting this right, that right, whatever. List a bunch of other things. And here's the thing. It's like I mentioned, right? These little side branches, those are important, right? But the reality is they're not as important as the main one. And that was the eye opener for her, and really continues to be as we go ahead and launch that. And what's already, after having our first week, it's been a boom first week. And I'm telling you what, it's because we focus on just existing business. We weren't focusing on all right, how can we focus on new business? That will come. There will be a time for that. But it's not right now. It's not right now. And that's the important thing to lean into in that situation. So for you, if you're starting from ground zero in your business, think about what is that existing leverage. Her existing leverage was the fact that she already had clients. What is that existing leverage for you in your side, right? It may be like that was a great leverage point that she had. At the same time, we all have a lot of them which maybe don't convert into dollars quite as easily or quite as quickly, but they still give you an advantage. And that's a big part of what I want to teach here today is that it's almost like it's this all or nothing mentality. We think, oh, well, my advantage isn't that big, so I'm not going to take advantage of it. Well, now you're putting yourself in the same position as everyone else around you and you're not standing out. So it doesn't have to be this much, something that can be that astronomical for you, but take advantage of whatever that may be. Because I used to say this all the time to my clients. It's like, what you want to do whatever you can to increase your closing rate by 1%. 1%. Because now they all start to add up. It's not just one thing that you do it and now all of a sudden your closing rate increases by 50%. That doesn't exist. That really doesn't exist unless you're just like doing something very stupid, basically. So the reality is it's about these 1% changes that we can do. It's always about the little things. I think about a basketball analogy. What's the difference between a Division I college basketball player and a Division III college basketball player? They're both extremely talented. It's the little things that make the difference, right? One's a little bit faster. One's a little bit this. It's not that it's a 50x difference, right? It's the little things that make the difference there. One happens to be a bit taller. That's right. It's all these things that really come into play that help that to really the leverage they have that allows them to explode and go to the next level, right? That was the difference between the ones who actually make it to the NBA, the National Basketball Association, right? So that's a big piece here to really lean into. Now, just keep this in mind here too. Like, why is it that every successful business that you admire is rooted in the compounding effect of leverage? Like, why is it? Why is it that all these big companies that you can think of, they all are constantly experiencing this compounding effect of leverage here, right? It's because they've found a strength that gives them an advantage in the marketplace, and they constantly focus on how can they make the most of it? How can they make the most of it? And they do this over and over again Because a lot of times what young and inexperienced business owners will do is they will have something that works and then they'll pretty quickly try to go ahead and try something new. I think especially in the internet marketing space, the online coaching creator space, I see this the most. And I've been victim of this myself here. It's like the reality is we have something that's working. We're like, you know what? Let me go ahead and completely jump ship over here and put all my eggs in that basket. Or even like, now I had 100 eggs over here that was working. Now let me go ahead and put 50 there, 50 here. And like that just doesn't make sense in a lot of cases, right? The reality, it makes, hey, if you want to go ahead and, you got 100 here, put 95, 90 over here still. Maybe you got 5 to 10 they put over there. Like no more than 20, right? You have to keep the main bread and butter what it is. You have to. And so that's where in the same side, it's exactly what all the biggest companies are doing. Like, you can think about Nike, Target, whoever it may be here, they focus on that and they think about what is it the advantage that they have. In a sense, just because I mentioned Nike, think about this. I always think about this as well, too. It's like, why, I've used a couple of basketball analogies here. Why is it that Nike has so many of the best um, NBA players, and you could argue all sports. I just know basketball the most here. Why is it that Nike has the most NBA players sponsored for their sneakers, and why is it they have some of the best ones? It's because of the leverage they've built up. They know, like Michael Jordan is under their brand, right? It's like Jordan falls under the Nike label. Like there's a reason why they're able to get more of the best people, and now that tends to skyrocket their sales every time they bring on a new best player, right? I can't think off the top of my head who like their latest people are, but like there's a reason they start off with Jordan, they end up getting LeBron. It's like they have the leverage to get LeBron James because they saw what it's pretty clear what they were able to do for Michael Jordan and his brand. Do you want to go ahead and try with somebody else random, or do you want to go ahead and try with something that's tried and tested, proven? They have their leverage. Once again, you hear this and you're thinking, well, my leverage isn't as strong as that, so why even bother? That's what's killing your business right now, okay? Don't think of it as this all or nothing. You have leverage. Maybe Nike's is at 150%. Like, take your 2% leverage, take your 5% leverage, take your 10% leverage, because you can take that and run with it, and it just only starts to compound. Before they had Michael Jordan on Nike, it wasn't as big. Their leverage wasn't as strong. It's now quadrupled. I can't even say the amount it's increased there, but it's increased because of the leverage over time. That compounding effect is what really crushes it for brands. Okay, so that's a big one here too. And what I kind of wanted you to also realize and see here is just like what that compounding effect and real leverage looks like in motion, right? I just gave you an example right there with it. How once again, because they were able to get Nike was, let's just call it, slower before. Then they get Michael Jordan, which allows them to get LeBron James, which allows them to get all these big names, right? The reality is that now it allows them to even more so, lean into their zone of genius. And for yourself, I want you to view it that same way. How can you set yourself up to really lean into your zone of genius the most? That's the goal here with this stuff. Because the more you can do that, the easier it is for you to keep things going, the longevity of the business to thrive, because you're focused in your sweet spot. That's what we want to really tap into, right? Starting a business is already uncomfortable. So give yourself an unfair advantage to really make it less uncomfortable, right? Like that's your cheat code. It's like in business, there are cheat codes. And a lot of the times we think, like we just have to take the hardest way. Like, let's just go towards the path of most resistance. Like if you find a path that has less resistance for yourself and is actually smart and helps the main objective, double, triple, quadruple, 10x times your energy there, because you just need to. And the sad reality is, I'm sure you've heard this before, we always think that the grass is greener on the other side. We always do. I have a client of mine there, Dan, where he's when he first came to me, he wanted to be let's just call it a mindset life coach, if you want that side, right? And that is something he absolutely will be getting into. But when we were thinking about, like, once again, fastest path to cash, what's the best way to get there? The main thing was he wanted to get out of his existing physical business and move into the online business, move into more digital online, more leverage, more time, location freedom. You're sick of driving across the country just to get paid for his clients. So what we ended up doing, and that's in his videography business. So what we ended up doing was, it's like, hey, we can go ahead and start this brand new thing and really be facing an extremely uphill battle. Or what we can do is take your existing experience, skill sets, client base, and start monetizing an offer that's purely online. And that's what we did. And that's why now all of a sudden he's able to get full multi-four-figure deals cranking out very quickly from when we started working together compared to what it would have looked like, because there would have been so much of just like he had to understand, like, build a strategy around what's my methodology with life and mindset coach, what's my this and that. And now it's like he already has so many assets in place that can just without a doubt help so many people inside of his audience. So that's what I really want you to lean into for yourself here is, what is that existing leverage, right? What is that existing leverage there? And I will tell you this right now, trends kill momentum and they actually end up leaving you broke, right? Like I said, it ties right into this idea of the grass is always green on the other side. Shiny object syndrome. It's like shiny tactic syndrome. So many business owners have this graveyard of like these half completed ideas, right? Maybe it's 20% completed, maybe it's 80% completed, whatever the case is, right? But the main thing is just that they never end up finishing them. They never end up finishing them, right? And it's because their priority list is all over the place, right? And they really just can't stay on the one thing that they really need to be putting all their time and energy into for long enough. And that one thing that would actually get them the most leverage. And the sad reality is losing them a ton of time and probably losing them a ton of money based off of a variety of reasons there, right? And really, it's just this, it all boils down to the fact that you're not sticking with one thing long enough to actually make it work, right? And especially because I think it's because you haven't built around you. When you're building around the levers that exist within yourself and in your existing business, it makes it easier for you to not kind of jump ship on a bunch of other things, because you understand, like, I have a North Star already. I'm not just jumping on something else where now I have no leverage. It's like the whole idea of the valley of despair, right? You start something new, you're super excited about it, then you get going, you realize this is tough, and so now all of a sudden you start to drop down into that valley of despair, and then you go ahead and start something new, and then you just continue this process over and over. But when you really start to win is when you hit that valley of despair, you drop down, you realize this is actually going to be tough, but you keep pushing through it. You keep pushing through it. And then you start getting those wins. And now all of a sudden you realize that there's actually leverage that you have already, in the sense that you know what it's like to stick through it during the tough times of that specific business and industry. And that in itself is leverage already, compared to starting something new where you don't even have that leverage. And that even just highlights a strong point I'm trying to really hit home for you here, is that leverage comes in a variety of different ways. You need to find yours and lean into it, because it gives you that advantage that you don't even have in so many areas. The majority of areas of life we don't have advantages in. Let's try to tackle onto any bits that we do to make things successful, right? Leverage comes from clarity, comes from focus, right? Comes from actually repeating what works with intention, to be honest with you here. And that's how really you stop starting from scratch. That's how you scale without the chaos. And really, that's how you create real options in your life. That's how things really get moving there too, right? And one of the main reasons why people are actually afraid to dive in and utilize leverage is just because of the unknown, right? Like, we'd rather go ahead and kind of chase after these small wins, these small branches like I've been talking about on the side, compared to just shooting downstream for your big goal or your big objective is going to actually crush your main goal the easiest and the fastest. We go to these side ones because, they make us feel better. It's like they give us that little dopamine kick when we're able to kind of distract ourselves with these little small wins. But the reality is it's not getting us where we want to get to, especially compared to that major one that can actually have an enormous impact on the revenue and the profit within our business, right? So we need to just be very disciplined and get comfortable being uncomfortable in order to get around this. That is a massive piece for you to start to tackle into, all right? Is this hitting home for you? Like I said, hit the like button if it is. I'm telling you this, even with what I've shared so far, we're still diving into some big pieces here coming up. But like, even if you dive into this so far, it's going to be so big for you on the mindset shift and how you really operate the business moving forward. So like I said, definitely hit that like button down below and subscribe if you haven't. Hopefully this is getting some major value out of this. Comment value if you are too. And maybe once again, now, like I asked you earlier, if you're trying to figure out what that leverage point is for you right now, let me know down below and I can help give you some more clarity on that for yourself, just to help you out. So now let's go ahead and take this to the next level, right? What I want you to do is really kind of avoid this, what I like to call in a sentence here, blank page syndrome, right? You want to avoid blank page syndrome at all costs. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you want to avoid starting anything without leverage. Anytime, think of it this way, like anytime I start a new offer, anytime I start, like, there's always some existing leverage within it, because I've been running this specific business for 5 years online, right? And even before, but let's before I even go back further, like this specific business for 5 years, I have so much that I've done over the 5 years that if I'm starting anything new, I better be pulling leverage from something I've been doing over the past 5 years. Otherwise, I'm starting from scratch like every other sucker out there. So I need to give myself the advantage. And you need to really think about that as well, too, because if you don't, it kills momentum. You're starting, it's like, imagine who's going to win a race if you're one person starting at zero, going up to 100 miles per hour, or if one person's at 60 miles per hour, going up to 100 miles per hour. Like the race to 100 miles per hour, it's pretty obvious who's going to win that race at that point. So I want you to think of it the same way. And so one of the best ways to really get this thing moving, it all comes back to this key factor that I want to really hit home on hard here today. For some reason, I feel like I'm wording that very strange. But that's this idea of prioritization, priorities. Prioritization is the most important thing when it comes down to any business strategy. It's tough to tell me I'm wrong on this one here. And you could argue the only thing that's more important than prioritization is the actual thing that you're prioritizing, right? But what you're prioritizing means nothing if you're not actually prioritizing it. Inception here, right? So most people get too distracted with a bunch of side things that aren't the main priority, right? Like I said, they're trying to go down and focus on the main things that help them grow the most, but they're getting distracted with all these side pieces on the way there, and they're actually just delaying the success of their business, right? So the reality is, if you focus on just that one thing, just that one main priority objective, you will probably make those other priorities irrelevant when it's all said and done, right? Because here's what tends to happen, right? We focus on all these side things, but if we were just focused on the main thing that's going to get us where we want to get to, you're probably going to realize that these other side things were completely irrelevant, and you'll have other things that will pop up to be the next priority that you need to now focus on because of everything that's transpired because of you focusing on the main thing. And sometimes the reality is sometimes you have to let some fires kind of burn when you're focused on this main thing. Like you can't, when you're focused, you can't focus on all the side stuff. And that's just the reality. So some things will crumble a little bit. But here's the thing. If you're focused on the big one, the 5 to 10x growth from that, it makes up so much compared to like this little thing that falls over here, right? This little thing is like 0.3x or whatever, well, let's call it even 1x. It's nothing. It's nothing in comparison to what's going to happen from this here. So that's what we want to really keep in mind as we're doing this here, right? Because that new thing just needs to become the main focus instead of you focusing on what you think are going to be the secondary and third things you just don't really know, right? And a difficulty a lot of people have is understanding what is the main priority, right? Sometimes, like when you even know the right actions in the business, it's just about like what's the right priority and what's the right leverage in a sense. A lot of times it's just knowing, it's about getting yourself out there, right? Getting yourself out there, like you yourself out there, and that in itself is the main leverage point, right? That might be tough to wrap your head around, but like think of this in the sense, like I mentioned, if you don't have a ton of leverage, but you have some leverage, it's about, and I'll give you an example of this. I have a client where she's out there and she's working again in coaching clients. She helps people with burnout. And one of the big things I showed her early on was just this idea that we need to go ahead and just get you in front of people because you have a talent right now, and that talent is your leverage. We just need to get you in front of more people. So like getting you in front of more people is our leverage because people like you, a great energy, you're an amazing coach. You just aren't getting in front of enough people. So like lean into like your priorities to do that, and that's going to start to spark up your marketing, start to spark up your sales opportunities, but get you more sales, which then those sales end up getting more clients. Now getting more clients gets you more client results, and now these client results end up giving you more leverage with all of your marketing to help the believability that someone will now want to see, okay, you know what? Looks like she's extremely talented. I do want to work with her that much more. It takes that little bit of leverage to really create that future leverage, create that compounding effect of leverage there. That's the sweet spot with this stuff here. I'm telling you, right? And so really, we want to just make sure we're staying consistent with the right things. And I'm telling you what right now, it's an easy concept. As you hear me saying it, it's an easy concept to wrap your head around. But when you're actually putting it into action, majority of people get stuck here, right? And so now with that being said, I want to give you something that I think is very critical to making this work, right? And that is just the fact that you need to be tracking the progress of that main priority. It's like the saying goes, what's not measured cannot be improved, right? What isn't measured, it cannot be improved here, right? And it's not important enough just to track it, okay? You need to be reviewing the data, reviewing those numbers on a regular basis. Think of it this way. You might be looking at this data once a week. Once a week. But you know what? The reality is you may need to increase it to once a day, potentially even several times a day. It all depends on like what's the priority level of this. How fast can we accomplish this, right? If it's something that you know can be accomplished by the end of the week, like maybe it is worth checking up on it twice a day, because you could. A lot of people say, "Oh, let me just check on it," at the end of the week. I'll see how I did at the end of the week. You're messing up. Let me check on it twice. I'll check on it Tuesday and Thursday. You're still messing up. Like you should be checking on it at the very least once a day. If it can get done by the end of the week, check on it once a day. Like all this stuff is gonna allow you to get it done faster. And then you know what? Then maybe you can take Friday off now. Give yourself a treat for getting done early because you stayed on top of it. This is what's so important. And a lot of times we underestimate how important it really is, right? Because I think we truly underestimate the reality of if we were to fix it, it would potentially 10x our business. And so if we knew this to be true, right? Why wouldn't we put in all our energy to prioritizing this as often as possible, which could mean you're prioritizing it and you're prioritizing the reviewing, the tracking of it multiple times a day. If you knew that it could 10x your business. And if you're unsure, like I said, it may be because you need assistance to find out what is that thing that can 10x your business. So now you can go all in with it, right? Because leverage comes from focus and it comes from clarity, right? So that's a big piece here too. And so now that we start to understand, you're starting to really listen, you're putting all this together. So now we want to think about how can we have a proper setup for this leverage? And this ties right into systems. This ties right into automation. This ties into consistency, right? And now what you want to have here now is you need to take advantage of the leverage that you already have dialed in and what that really is. Because now you can take that and you can build out a blueprint, right? And really you can now start to work smarter. You can start to really lean into your strengths more. You can lean into delegation and leverage in the right areas. Because a lot of times we're delegating the stuff that just shouldn't even be delegated in the first place. It's a waste of time and a waste of money, right? So we really need to do this. And so I want to leave you with 3 main pieces that you can kind of go ahead and apply this within your business, right? Just so you can really how can you go ahead and take this and run? Number 1, audit your past wins. This can help you, especially, like I said, if you're starting off trying to think, what do I even have? You can think about past wins that aren't even in this business that you're in right now or looking to get into. Now, if you have past wins in your current business, great, look at those, right? What's worked for you, right? Not what's trending and stuff like that. Like, what are the actual results you've gotten for yourself? Use them. All right, number 2, rebuild your offers around your strongest skill sets. This should be somewhat obvious to you, but at the same time, you need to think about that. Because here's what you don't want to do. Rebuild your offer around what's hot in the market. It's okay if you have elements of that in the offer, but don't make that it's all built around that, okay? We need to make sure we have a lot more dialed in beyond that there too. So really that's a big one. And focus on what you can deliver on consistently. That ties right back into your zone of genius like we talked about earlier, right? And then number 3 here, you want to really systematize and simplify. Right? Because the reality is if you've already created results doing something one way, here's the thing. You need to document it, systematize it, and use it as your baseline for everything going forward. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Like I told you, so many online struggle with this. They have something that works. Then they want to go ahead and try something completely different because that shiny object over there is it's like, oh, you know what? What I'm doing over here, it's not that good. That looks amazing. The grass is greener on the other side. It always is. It always appears that way. The reality is, if you've got something that works, continue to optimize it. Continue to make it better. You're going to have far less bottlenecks and roadblocks going that path compared to the path of trying to completely make something new. It's like I said, right now you're on whatever platform, insert the platform you're on. Let's just call it Instagram. And now you want to go ahead and try out YouTube. It's like if you have not done anything on YouTube compared to you've actually generated clients on Instagram, ask yourself this one question. Are you checking all the boxes that you should be doing every day in order to maximize your energy and your efforts on Instagram? If you can put your ego to the side and say, check, yes, all boxes checked. Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Right? Talking to yourself. By all means, go start building over here. But if you're not, which I know that 99% of you watching right now are not, then you probably shouldn't be worried about getting on another platform right now. That's the cold hard truth. All right. So like I said, this is a lot to soak in, but if you lean into this, I'm telling you, like just stop starting from scratch. Use this and scale it 10x faster. Point blank period. All right. And honestly, too, like if you want help, even like basically just building your business the smart way, based around your own leverage, your own strengths and systems, I've actually got my free business manuscript, and that'll really walk through the exact frameworks that I actually use with my private clients and that even helped me crack my first million online. All right. So go ahead and download it right now. The link is in the description below. I feel like you just need to stop guessing and just start scaling the right way, right? So go ahead and check my manuscript down there below. It'll be huge for on that side. Like I said, I hope you got a ton of value out of this video. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'm dropping videos every single Wednesday, and right now I'm doing them every Wednesday at 4 p.m. I've been doing videos every Wednesday for literally the past 4 years and beyond, right? And some of them have been on this platform, some on others. Right now, you're lucky if you're watching this on YouTube. That's exactly where I'm dropping these. So stay in tune for the future. If it makes sense, I'll also drop a video here too at the end. They'll just help you. I think if you can start to think about, okay, now I have this. How can I tie this to my right offer? How can I tie this to my creating the right ecosystem around this stuff to really input this leverage into something that makes the most sense? That's what I want to help you the most. Take advantage, lean in. I'll catch you in the next video.